Good morning, everyone. What a fantastic turnout. Really proud to be here today. So, who am I? Gary Cyril. So, I'm a Staffordshire police officer. I'm a detective sergeant. I've done 22 years in the police now. I'm extremely proud to be a police officer. I've done all sorts of fantastic, exciting roles in the police. I've worked on murder teams, all sorts of stuff. But the last 2 years, I've worked on a cyber team, and genuinely, this is the most challenging, the most exciting, the most rewarding area of policing that I've been involved in. Why? Because absolutely, I feel that I'm at the cutting edge of policing. This is the future, but I'm doing it now, and I'm going to be around long enough to see that sort of all that comes after me. So I'm seconded to the Regional Organised Crime Unit, which is based out of Birmingham, but we cover the whole region, the 4 forces in this region, including Staffordshire. And I'm sort of embedded within the cyber team there. And I think Superintendent Amanda Davis is going to sort of tell you a little bit later about the kind of how we deal with cybercrime in terms of the 4P approach and all that sort of stuff. I'm also extremely fortunate to be embedded within the Regional Cybercrime Unit that covers the West Midlands because, genuinely I would argue without, sort of being a bit too arrogant, but we are leading the way. We had a very kind letter from Europol last year that said that our little team based in the West Midlands covering this force area were responsible for 80% of the work that was coming from UK law enforcement in relation to cyber-dependent crime, hacking. So the work that was going to Europol and that was then being worked with partners across Europe and across the world. So that's a little bit about me. So why am I here today? Cybercrime, I think as we know, the problem is growing. It is growing, make no bones about it, and it possibly may get worse before it gets better. That's the reality. Why is that? Well, I think it's obvious. You can sit on a laptop anywhere in the world with a little bit of training, unfortunately, that you may get from YouTube. You can download free tools, things like Kali, and within hours, I guarantee anyone in this room can be doing some low-level hacking. Or you can go on the dark web, a part of the internet, and basically hire these services and get people effectively to do the hacking for you for a fee. Unfortunately, it's never been easier to get involved in crime. So, also a bit of reality from us. I think 10 years ago, you might have had a police officer standing here talking about something like drugs, saying, we're going to solve it, yeehaw, we're going to sort of fight this problem, we're going to do it alone. That's rubbish. We're never going to do that, and we're certainly not going to do it with cybercrime. I think as Sue Arnold's already alluded to, very much everything we're going to do around cyber and fraud is going to be a sort of multi-agency approach. And I think reality is we're going to be a sort of small partner in it. We've got a part to play, but the bulk of the work is going to be done by universities addressing the skills gap around IT, designing out crime, the solutions. I think there's also a big part to be played by businesses and the public, because a point that maybe will sort of come up time and time again today is, the reality is, I think we get physical security now. We get it. We lock our doors. We leave our lights on. We tell our neighbours we're going away. And yet, when we go online, and that's everything from, kids up through to silver surfers, we seem to disengage our brains. We trust people. We take people at their word that they are who they say they are. Jenny that we're talking to America, it might be Dave the truck, the truck driver. That's the reality of the internet. It makes things a lot harder. Business has absolutely got a role to play. So I'm going to, myself and you've got an amazing lineup of speakers today. I'm absolutely going to hang around. There's some speakers I really want to listen to because I'm going to learn a lot today, and I know you will. Part of today is to raise awareness of the threats, make you aware so that you can, you can target harden. You can do the equivalent of locking your front door online. That's what today's about. I want you to actually report cybercrime. Please report it. Action fraud is the single reporting mechanism for fraud and for cybercrime. If your business gets hacked, if you get hacked at home, please report it. We won't get the resources to deal with cybercrime unless people report it. We won't get the intelligence, we won't get the evidence unless people report it. I appreciate action fraud didn't historically get the resources it deserved. And people have had a really bad experience with action fraud. The reality is they've invested heavily. They've got a massive call centre up in Scotland now. And if you report to action fraud, what might have taken weeks and months to turn around to get the package back out of the police forces before is now done in minutes and hours and maybe days. You know, there's a triaging process, a bit like happens at A&E. So when you report a cybercrime, it's instantly assessed and it's turned around really quickly. So give it another chance, please. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about Cyber Essentials and the CIS platform, the intelligence and information platform around cybercrime. And some of the speakers, again, will kind of repeat those. So why is cybercrime so important? I'm not here to scare you. You know, I'm genuinely not here to scare you. You know, but there is a bit of reality checking about what's going to go on throughout today. You know, the UK is one of the most advanced digital economies in the world. 12.5% of our economy is online. That figure's probably out of date already. 5, 10 years ago, I think we'd have all done our Christmas shopping on the high street in person. I'm guessing that a lot of you have already kind of done your shopping online already, you know, sort of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever. So, you know, that's how the world's changed in a very short time. The problem is it makes us extremely vulnerable to attacks. 90% of large businesses, 74% of small, medium enterprises have had a breach in the last year. And I know it's said time and time again, but the reality with cybercrime, it is a case of not if, but when. Because I said it is too easy. And we're making it easy for the criminals. Criminals aren't stupid. They do stupid things, but they're not stupid. They're good at spotting opportunities. So, you know, as I say, don't be one of those victims. You know, I personally think you're far more likely now to be attacked by a cybercrime, than you are to be burgled, to be attacked by violent crime. That's the reality. You know, why would a criminal risk burgling your house and maybe, you know, get caught eventually? Because burglars do get caught, despite what you hear in the Daily Mail. They get caught. We catch them. They get caught. They go to prison for 2 years, for 3 years, for 4 years. Cybercrime, it's more challenging for us, as you'll hear throughout the day. So crime has shifted. And I talked about reporting cybercrime. You know, I think there was about 30 to 40,000 cybercrimes and frauds reported last year to Action Fraud. And yet the Office for National Statistics, a survey was done last year and said the reality wasn't 30 to 40,000. It was actually, there was about 5 to 6 million fraud and cyber offences last year. So that's the gap we've got to make up. And the reality is perhaps the success in this world would be to get the reporting increased so that we know the kind of the true picture. So I'm going to make yourselves do a bit of work because I'm going to wake you up a bit. It's a hard act to follow, Sue Arnold, to get that kind of level of energy up. But I'm going to get yourselves to do a little bit of work for me. So for those businesses in the room, you think, well, how can I defend myself against cybercrime? You know, I think the initial questions you need to ask yourself are, what are the crown jewels for our business? What makes us likely to be attacked? You know, what is it about us? Why would they attack us? And then also to look at what types of hackers are out there, because despite what you see on TV and despite the common myth, you know, hackers aren't just 15-year-olds sat in their bedroom with pizza boxes. We see that, we've dealt with that. But it's everything from that right up to the international level. And you need to know, you know, you kind of almost like the profile of your company. Who is likely to attack you and why? And until you know that, until you know your business, you can't really defend yourself. So I'll get yourselves doing some work. Just shout out, I appreciate we haven't got any roving mics, but why do people hack? What are the motivations for hacking? Just money. It's always money. Money's always the first one, absolutely. Yeah, billions and billions of pounds go out the UK economy and economies across the world through hacking. You know, hacking isn't a victimless crime. It isn't a white-collar crime that, you know, it's not really that important because the banks will give us our money back. It's massive business. Yeah, it's done by kiddies in their bedrooms, but it's also done by organised crime. Organised crime that's extremely sophisticated, that's making billions of pounds. And it's the same crime groups that are also dealing with modern-day slavery. They're dealing with paedophilia. They're dealing with drugs, with gun running, terrorism possibly. So, yeah, it's all of those things. Yeah, money, absolutely. And there's almost industrial-level ways of getting that money. Why else do people hack? It's not just for money. Information, yeah, information. I would argue information, I mean, that kind of goes across a variety of areas. The main one is quite often information is then turned into money. So the criminals will post those details up on the dark web and sell that information. Your driving license, your national insurance might be worth $5. You know, your credit card might be worth $10, and they sell these details. So yeah, your information. Why else do people hack? Design. So as in designs, intellectual property? Yeah, definitely. So business hacking. If you've invested millions of pounds in a new design, Jaguar, a new car, JCB, a new digger, that is worth lots of money. It's lots of money, and you know, potentially if you're a rival company, you could pay money to get those details stolen. You know, perhaps in the day they would have had your premises burgled. The reality is now they don't need to do that. And that does go on. So yeah, business hacking. Well, there's still more. There's loads more.
Become the President of America.
Say again?
Become the President of America.
To become the President of America, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that one. That's a real low baller, isn't it? Although, to be fair, Theresa May did come out last week and said, look, enough's enough now. You know, we've got irrefutable evidence from GCHQ that Russia is involved in these activities. You know, it's all right pretending it's not happened, and there's some states actually saying, in future, we're going to start taking some of this stuff as a kind of an early step to war. You know, the effect it's having on our economy is possibly the same as, you know, you've just bombed us. So, yeah, times have changed. Still more? Kudos, I like that, yeah. Yeah, we do a lot in the UK. So people hacking as a challenge, as a bit of fun. Little Johnny or Jenny, they'll hack the school. They hacked the school, and that was easy. With the first IT lesson, they already know more than their IT teacher. That's the reality, that's what we're seeing. You know, I did a talk at a college down Birmingham way, and half the students there, 15, 16, regularly go on the dark web. That's the reality now. Yeah, hacking for a challenge. And of course, to get that challenge, to get the kicks, to get the recognition, you have to keep doing bigger and bigger and bigger. Our team dealt with a guy from Solihull who started out like that, did low-level hacking, and by the end he was hacking the UK government, he was hacking the FBI, which is not a smart move. So yeah, hacking for kudos. The thing we like about that, in a funny way, is to get that kudos, you have to go online and brag about what you've done. So, as you'd expect, quite rightly, law enforcement, we do sit on those same chat forums, and we, you know, when they confess their crimes, we say thank you very much, and then go knocking on their door. I think you've got most of them. You've got a very intelligent audience. The one you've missed at the top is hacktivism. People don't just hack for money, they hack for a political cause also. You might be trying to raise attention to your own cause, your political agenda, animal rights, whatever. Also, you might be trying to undermine, so you might be trying to undermine a government, you might be trying to discredit, I don't know, McDonald's because of meat products, whatever reason, there's any number of reasons. And again, our little team in the West Midlands, we've dealt with lots of this. You know, the Iranians hack the Saudis, the North Koreans hack the South Koreans, the Bangladeshis, the Indians, it goes on all the time, so it's not just for money. Fame, kudos, you've got that, financial. Insider, I think that's a little bit of information maybe, but we all forget insider. And again, we deal with lots of this. Some of it is reckless, some of it is by mistake, when Doris or Dave in accounts click on that phishing email on a Friday afternoon and basically wipe out your server goes down because everything gets scrambled. You know, is that an insider threat? I suppose it is. You know, it's the equivalent of someone effectively not locking your factory over the weekend and then getting burgled. But then we also have the kind of, the more, when people have maybe been overlooked for promotion, people have just been sacked. Again, we've dealt with a case where people, you know, that exact case happened, and we found out that basically someone had been sacked, but they still had their company laptop. They still had remote access into the company. Nothing had been locked down on leaving. They still had the company desktop. I mean, I don't know what that was about, but you know, it was just made too easy. That wasn't a sophisticated state-level attack as we initially thought. It was just a disgruntled ex-employee who'd been hacked, sacked. Competitive advantage. The other thing we forget is also IT professionals. There's good hackers, lots of good hackers, and there's not enough of them in this country. White hat hackers, as they're called. You know, this is part of the skills gap. We need more of these people. So little Johnny and Jenny, when they take down the school, the challenge for my team, and I've started to build a team now to do it, and we call it Prevent. It's all about identifying those individuals and nurturing those skills and diverting them away from crime and working for us, working for IBM, working for some of the firms in this room, to address that skills gap. Police, we hack. You know, my team are very good hackers. We do lots of stuff. I'm not going to talk about what we do. I mean, Cal, who sat here, probably knows some of the bits we do, and we do a lot more. We have to fill out a lot of paperwork to do the hacking. You know, everything we do has to be lawful, proportionate, necessary, reasonable. But we hack, you know, and I think you'd expect us to hack. All the tricks the criminals use, we use against them. And then, of course, state level as well. You know, the British government, the Israelis, the Chinese, the Americans, as a country, you know, as countries hacking now. All future warfare, there'll be an element of hacking. You know, why send the bombers in when you can take down the power station just with some very clever people sat on laptops? So, some common reports. I'm not going to go over these in depth, but ransomware is absolutely huge at the moment. That's when your computers, your files, anything of use to your company just gets scrambled. Invariably, it comes through an email, a phishing email that one of your staff has downloaded a file, or it's clicked on a link, or you've gone to a website, and they usually do tend to be porn websites or gambling websites, and staff going on those in lunch hours and things like that. The insider threat, I've talked about that. Denial of service, that's when your website gets took down by a mass flood of traffic, and just your website just topples over. And our team are doing a lot of work with that internationally to take down the people, the organisations providing that as a service. And then banking malware, and again, you know, historically it tends to come in through phishing emails, but it's a very clever bit of software that will sit on your computers and then just recognise every time you go onto banking and will capture your credentials, and then you find your account's been emptied. So that's a common flavour of what we're dealing with. I've talked about reporting it. As businesses, the best way to report cybercrime is to phone up. If you phone up, you speak to a real person, you speak to a call centre, and it gets triaged then and there. You can report online if you want, but again, please report it. A little bit about us. I think Superintendent Davis is going to talk about this in more depth, but there's sort of 3 levels to UK cyber. There's local force cyber teams, so 43 forces in the UK. There's 10 ROCUs, such as I'm embedded within. And then the tip of the spear, UK's FBI, there's the National Crime Agency have got their own cyber team. And then there's other agencies involved in this piece as well. So you've got the National Cyber Security Centre that's already been talked about, Action Fraud, City of London Police, all doing good work. Just to give you a bit of a flavour of how crime's changed, you know, 10 years ago, a team like mine would have been dealing with burglars, would have been dealing with armed robbers, that kind of thing. You know, locally based, targeting local victims. This is now a typical investigation that one of the detectives on my team is dealing with. You know, this isn't regional, it's not even national, it's international. So we've got a suspect in Eastern Europe, we've got a suspect in America, in Australia, in Britain. They're using payment systems going out of Switzerland. They're using a bogus company in Belize. And all the laws, all the legislation we have to sort of negotiate in this country to investigate cybercrime, when it becomes international, you're doing all of that for all the countries that you're dealing with as well. Now, Europol's fantastic in that. It's a great conduit, and we work with them effectively, as you've heard before. But yeah, the landscape has changed, and that's why cybercrime is so challenging. Dark web, I haven't really got the time to talk about it at length now, but all I'll say is it is the criminal marketplace online. The dark web is like the normal internet. For those that don't know, it is the normal internet. But to get there, you need a certain bit of browsing software. A bit like Chrome, a bit like Safari, a bit like Internet Explorer. It's called Tor, but there are other variations. And all it does is use encrypted technology to get you to the dark web, to that marketplace. And yeah, everything you've heard in the press is true. You can go there, you can buy guns, you can buy drugs, you can buy images, anything, you know, that you can do in any seedy part of town, you can do online. And the scary thing is, it's like an eBay type marketplace. So if you buy your drugs, actually your drug dealer will be rated. It'll be rated for how quickly he delivers, the packaging, you know, all of that kind of stuff, you know, ratings out of 10, and the drugs do arrive. And, you know, it's very challenging. You know, do you want your local tax pounds effectively being paid for us to police the internet, to police that, when effectively the drug dealer might be based in America, dealing to someone in Australia? But that's how policing's changing, that's how society's changing, and all your rights, all your freedoms, the right of the internet, you know, the free flow of traffic. If you want us to enforce some of this, possibly we might need to have a sort of think about how far maybe the pendulum needs to sort of swing towards law enforcement and sort of taking action on some of these things. The oil that makes all of this work, you know, because we used to do a lot of work with the banks, the credit card companies, to actually follow the money to investigate the criminals. It's all using virtual currency now. I haven't got time to talk about it, but yeah, Google virtual currency. I think you've probably seen in the press, I think it's today that Bitcoin's now hit $10,000 a Bitcoin. I think when it first launched, 2 pizzas were bought for 10,000 Bitcoins. So my maths isn't very good, but that's a very expensive pizza. But why do criminals use it? Well, it's extremely hard to trace. The technology around it makes it not impossible, but we rely on criminals making mistakes to actually follow Bitcoins. So again, it is to their advantage. A quick one, I've given you some doom and gloom. There are some massive, massive opportunities around digital for policing. Back in the 1980s, you know, traditional crime scene, DNA was first used in 1986, I think it was, to solve a murder. Back then, I can imagine cops going, well, we don't do DNA, we're not scientists. But now every police officer understands DNA, they understand crime scenes, they understand cross-contamination, we get it. And the point I'm trying to make is, I hope in the future that that's where we're going to be with digital. Because looking at this crime scene, There's any number of digital devices where you could trace witnesses, you could get the movements of the victim, you could get the movements of the offender. There's routers, there's laptops, there's mobile phones, there's digital devices, all sorts of things will help solve a case. That's the challenge for policing, that 5–10 years' time, that police officers will have the technical knowledge to go and exploit some of that potential evidence. Now, like Sue said, 80%, okay, maybe that figure's slightly misleading, but what that means is the majority of cybercrime is easily preventable if you just adopt the basic measures. If you do the online equivalent of leaving your lights on, locking your doors, telling your neighbour you're going away, you will not fall, well, okay, let's get this right, you're very unlikely to fall victim to cybercrime. I can't give you that 100% reassurance. It's like me saying to you, go and buy a burglar alarm. You know, chances are you won't then get burgled. You might still get burgled, but the reality is it's far less likely. And that's the messaging from today. Just do the basics and you'll be a lot safer. What about for the other 20%? Well, that's all about backing up your data. That's all about encrypting anything that you don't want getting out there, just in case the worst should happen. These are some top tips. If you go and see, basic part of today is also to launch Matt, who's Staffordshire Police's first digital PCSO. He's one of only a handful of such officers in the country. So if you take the opportunity at some point today to go over the stand there and talk to Matt, he will give you some brilliant advice around patching, on passwords, on AV, on upgrading, you know, to the latest OS, all of those things. But these are the basics. You know, you do these, as you say, that's equivalent to buying a burglar alarm. You're going to give yourself a lot more assurance. What support is out there? We've already talked about the National Cybersecurity Centre. You can do a lot worse as a small business going out and going on this website. Lots and lots of great advice, and I think there's lots of booklets from the NCSC around here giving the advice. Get Safe Online. We're very lucky to have Rob Hatfield here today from Get Safe Online. We're going to sort of talk about some of the stuff, the great work they're doing, and everything they say absolutely comes from government, comes from the NCSC. CyberAware, another great website to go on, another great bit of signposting. Who's old enough in the audience to remember Charlie Says, Stranger Danger, that kind of thing? Yeah, there's an old audience, and I remember it. Charlie Says, I think someone in their wisdom in the Home Office thought that having a cat as an expert around cybersecurity would be the solution to all of it. You may be sad to hear now that the cat has been put down. The cat is gone. So it's now a kind of Danny Dyer-esque East End gun. No stereotyping at all, but it's an East End style gangster who's now trying to scare you about cyber. So yeah, if you're looking for the cat is gone. I think I've kind of run out of time, but very, very briefly, who's heard of Cyber Essentials in the room? That's quite good. That's about half the audience. Bit of a 30-second tour of Cyber Essentials. First things I'll say to defend myself, it's not perfect. It's getting better. What is it? It's a government scheme. It's their flagship program for small businesses in terms of cyber hygiene. It's a recognition at the moment that the majority of small businesses out there at the moment aren't doing anything around cyber, around their IT security, around data protection. So it is a very low level. Again, those of a certain age, it is a Janet and John version of cyber security. But it's better than nothing, absolutely. And certainly the companies I've dealt with that have got this, it gives them an appetite. They then go on to get ISO 27001 and to do various other things. How does it work? You work with an accredited company. It costs £300 a year. You get it for 12 months, and then you have to renew. It's self-certification. There's a list of controls. If you don't want to pay the £300, you can actually download the checklist for free and work through them and do them yourselves. A bit of a carrot and stick thing. The government's now saying that in certain sectors, certainly in defence and possibly soon in health and maybe local government, if you haven't got this standard as a business, you will not win tenders. The government will not do business with you. So that's the stick. The carrot is, if you get this as a company, you can be one of less than 10,000 in the country at the moment that have actually got this. So in terms of tendering, it gives you that massive cutting edge. And it is achievable. There's a school in Lincolnshire that's got it. If they can get it, yourselves can get it. And it's worth getting. CISP, anyone that wants to come and speak to me at the end about CISP, any network defenders, anyone who works in IT, responsible for the IT of your companies in here, come and have a chat with me. This is a government platform around intelligence and information around cyber threats. What it does, it gives you for free threat feeds. It gives you white papers that you can go away. You can take them to your CEOs and say, look, we need to spend this money, or we need to do this, we need to train, because these are the threats, and this is coming straight from government. It's a secure platform, it's invite only, and as I say, if you come and speak to me, I can do my due diligence and get you onto the platform, and it's free. And that's it for me. Please, those on Twitter, follow Matt. So it's a bit of a soft launch today, but very much, so it's at SP_digital PCSO. And Matt just daily will be just putting tons and tons of free information out there along the lines of what I've talked about today. And it's not just about your businesses, it's about your families as well. I'd say even more so it's about your families. And that's the sort of stuff Matt will be doing. So I've probably overrun, but thank you for your listening anyway. Cheers.